deck. Alright, I'm just going to clap for to sync the audio and everything, so. Whoop. There we go. Alright, go ahead and start. Okay, so I'm going to ask you a few questions, and if you don't feel comfortable answering any of the questions, you can just tell me, and I'll be sure not to ask those questions. And then I'll be writing some of your answers down, so you see me writing. Okay, so to start off, I know earlier in the art room you said you were drafted and then you enlisted?
Correct. What happened is I was actually drafted in 1970 in the Army, and rather than go in the Army, I went and enlisted. It's called a delayed enlistment, and I enlisted in the Air Force, thinking at that time that I was being smart and would get out of going to Vietnam, but it didn't work. All branches of service were still sending young guys to Vietnam, no matter what.
So I did see that on your time of service it was 1971 to 75?
Correct. So
you did serve in the Vietnam War?
Yes. Yes, I did. I served in Vietnam at Da Nang Air Force Base in Da Nang, Vietnam for 1 year.
Look at that phone to record. I heard my phone. Sorry. I want to make sure I have every detail.
Okay.
Just give me a sec. Okay. Thank you. Yep. All right. So, did you pick the service branch that you joined in?
Yes, I did. I picked the United States Air Force rather than being drafted, like I say, in the Army. I enlisted in the Air Force, a delayed enlistment program that they were running at that time. I could have enlisted in the Navy or Marine Corps, but I chose the Air Force.
Okay. Is there a reason why you chose that one specifically, or is that one draw to you the most?
Well, yeah. Uncles, friends of mine, all were either in the Navy or the Marine Corps. My dad was in the Navy. I wanted something different. There was never any of family in the Air Force.
All right. And your first days in the Air Force, can you tell me what it was like and your training experiences?
Well, the first, it was actually October 15th of 1971. I was put at Lackland Air Force Base in San Antonio, Texas. And that was basic training, which was 8 weeks of basic training. So you go through a lot of physical, vigorous physical training. You learn hand-to-hand combat. You learn what it takes to survive, is basically what it is. A lot of mental stress. And then after got done with basic training, then I was stationed at Shepherd Air Force Base in Wichita Falls, Texas, and there I underwent more training, learned how to be a heavy equipment operator and a truck driver. And that was for, I think, another 8 or 10 weeks.
Oh, so were the hours longer?
Well, it's not so much hours. I mean, you're on duty 24 hours a day. So it was 8 hours, 10 hours a day. You learned how to operate heavy equipment and went through teaching and training and basically it was like school is what it was, And then after I graduated tech school, I was stationed at Ellsworth Air Force Base in Rapid City, South Dakota, and at that time I was put in SAC, the Strategic Air Command. And our job, or my job, was we defended and maintained and kept the runways open, taxiways. We had a series of B-52 bombers that the bombers would fly around the clock over Vietnam. And we had KC-130 and 135 refuelers. So our job was to keep the runways open no matter what, and the taxiways. And also we would go and maintain the Minuteman missiles and missile bases throughout South Dakota.
Oh, that's amazing. Do you remember, like the times that it was stressful? Like, how did you get through those times? Like, what, like...
I'd call home and probably whine to my parents. And my dad would say, toughen up, you know. So.
Right, and you said that you served in the Vietnam War.
Correct.
I know that was like one of the longer wars in
Yeah.
history. So was that near the end of the war?
Well, the Vietnam War ended actually in 1975, was the fall of Saigon. And then that was basically, the fall of Saigon was actually, I think, in 77. And that when they finally pulled all U.S. troops and the U.S. dignitaries out of the Vietnam then. But yeah, the Vietnam War actually went from I would say it began right after Korea in 1948, and it never got heavy, and the United States never got involved with it heavily until like 1966.
Okay. Yeah, I started reading more about that before the interview, just to I don't know, to get more of a learn about it.
Yeah.
And all right. So, what are some of your most memorable experiences during your time in service?
Well, we were deployed to the flight line in Ellsworth Air Force Base. We had a B-52 come in with no landing gear. And we foamed the runway and got everybody out there to protect that. And the B-52 crashed, slid across the runway, took out a JP-4 pump house, which that's JP-4 jet fuel, and erupted into flames. And our job was to try and put everything out. And I distinctly remember we had a tech sergeant on the fire department. On a B-52, you got a crew of 7, 6 up in front and 1 tail gunner. Well, the 6 in front were all killed, and the tail gunner was the only one that lived due to the tech sergeant took a fire truck, rammed the back glass, and pulled him out.
Wow.
So, I mean, that's... And then June 9th, 1972, I was in the Rapid City flood. 279 people lost their lives. They flew us downtown by helicopter and landed us on rooftops with M16s, and they told us, shoot looters to kill. And then next thing we knew, buildings were collapsing, and they came back and got us off the rooftops, and then they landed us, and we went on body search from house to house. And one of the more gruesome things would be we used grappling hooks to hook bodies and pull bodies out of the river.
I like hearing your stories about this, because I can't imagine being there and experiencing it. So it's just amazing that...
At that time I was 18, 19, and I thought I was indivisible. Yeah.
All right. And I know that you said... Sorry, should I pause more?
No, you're fine.
Okay.
I was just reading your question.
I know that you said that you were able to call your family.
Yeah.
So were you able to is it just calling, or were you able to send letters? Or
Well, yeah, you could write home, and my parents would write to me. My wife at that time she was just my girlfriend, and we would write back and forth, and I would be able to call her. You know, when I got stationed overseas in Guam and some of the foreign countries, it was a little more difficult to try and call home, which it was more just letter writing or postcards. You know.
Okay.
So.
It's good that you're able to stay in touch, though.
Yeah,
I always wonder about that, how that works. This is just a fun question, but what was the food like?
Horrible. Everybody said the Air Force had the best food, but I liked SOS. They always called it shit on a shingle, and it was actually creamed chipped beef on toast, which I really liked it. It was good. But as far as anything else, the powdered eggs and whatnot,
that doesn't,
not very
that
good.
doesn't sound good.
You know, one of the things would be caught in a blizzard in South Dakota, and it'd be 3-4 days. We'd be stuck in the snow barn, and the only thing we'd have would be boxed lunches, and it was consisted of a couple of dried out pieces of bread with a piece of bologna in between, a cookie, and a glass of milk. You know?
Oh man.
When that's all you got to eat for 3 days, it's kind of.
Oh, I can't imagine that. Did you have anything that you kept on you for like good luck during service, or was it just like thinking of family?
I mostly thought of my wife. Sal and I got married in 1973, and we're still married to this day.
So it was during your service when you got married?
Yes, she spent 2 years in the service with me.
Oh, what did she do?
She, at that time, she just was a housewife. At Ellsworth, where I was stationed, being that I could be deployed overseas at any time, they wouldn't give her a job. Mm-hmm. So she mainly just stayed at the apartment and took care of our dog, and that was it, you know. And we got married in 73, and she came back home in 75 and resumed her job at the state office building with the Wisconsin Real Estate Examining Board.
Okay. And during your service, where were the different places you traveled?
Well, I was at Lackland Air Force Base in Wichita Falls, Texas, and from there I went to Shepherd Air Force Base in, Lackland Air Force Base in San Antonio, Texas, and then I went to Shepherd Air Force Base in Wichita Falls, and then my main PCS base, permanent duty station, was Ellsworth Air Force Base. And then from Ellsworth Air Force Base, we would get put on like a KC-130, and I flew to Vietnam, flew to Guam. One of my more exciting experiences was over Guam. I got to watch them refuel a B-52 in midair, which was really exciting. I laid in the back glass with the refueler and watched him refuel, and then when he says break away, that jet's gone, and a little bit of fuel comes out, and then he brings the boom back in. So
wow.
It was an experience.
And I see that you have some photographs?
Yeah, this is my graduating high school, 1970 here at Cudahy.
So after high school you went in?
Correct.
Okay.
That's 1971. This was just a few photos. Stationed in Texas here.
So was this more of like the beginning stages?
Yeah, at the beginning of stages. It's Ellsworth. There's at Ellsworth Air Force Base. And this was our sleeping quarters. You slept with 65 other guys.
I love seeing pictures like this.
Them you can actually keep, because I had my wife copy them.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, thank you.
So, and then your teacher, your art teacher, she copied this. I don't know if you can really make it out. That's what this is. This was our insignia. I was in the Strategic Air Command, which when we pulled out of Vietnam totally in 1975, they ended the Strategic Air Command and closed that down.
May I see this?
Sure. And then, like I did tell you too, you can keep this too, I run and operate the Cudahy War Memorial.
Wait, oh, you run and operate?
Yeah, it's here on the corner of Lake Drive and Layton, the Cudahy War Memorial. The previous gentleman, Bud Bessler, that ran it passed away, and at that time they didn't have anybody that would volunteer to run and operate the memorial, so our previous mayor, which was Ray Glowacki, he talked me into running it, and I've been running it ever since.
How's that like? Is it?
Well, I just make sure everything is maintained and clean, keep the flags going, make sure all the lighting goes. I get a hold of maintenance people that I've got actually a crew of people that they do the mowing, they plant the flowers, take the flowers out, and whatnot. And basically operated during Memorial Day. The Cudahy High School band comes and we have a big Memorial Day ceremony. The city of Cudahy fire truck comes. They've got that big, huge fire truck with that massive flag, and they fly over the top of the War Memorial.
Mm-hmm. I know what you're saying. Yeah, that's.
So I just basically keep working on organizing that and keep it going from year to year. The police, the security, everything.
Mm-hmm. I always see the fire truck and the flag, and I don't know. It's just like it's nice to have.
Yeah, in my heart, I could not let that War Memorial go to on the wayside because those guys' names, especially the Vietnam veterans, 5 of them I went to high school with, and their names are on that wall. My father, a lot of his friends, their names are on that wall. You know, so in my heart, being a veteran, I couldn't let it just go to pot. You know, that's. I wear these bracelets. This is a bracelet that it will never be forgotten of a Major Bruce Johnson. He was killed in Vietnam in 1965.
Did you all get one of those, or
no,
did you?
You just volunteer to have one and wear it. And this is what they call from a soldier to soldier. And my daughter actually bought this. This was made by disabled veterans by the ripcord of a parachute.
Oh.
And presented from veteran to veteran.
Oh, that's really amazing. Oh, your father, you said he served, what did he do?
He was in World War II, he was in the Navy.
Okay.
Yeah.
Alright.
And this is, if anybody's ever wondered what the meaning of the colors of the Vietnam campaign ribbon is, that's what that is. Tells what the colors mean. I keep moving out of focus.
Oh, you're fine. Okay. Thank you for showing me that.
Okay.
Alright. Did you guys entertain yourselves in any way? Like, did you guys have, like, ways of, like, keeping each other lifted spirits?
Sure, we would tell jokes, and basically during basic training, when you'd sit around and write letters home and polish your boots and get ready for inspections, you would tell jokes or just sing songs. One of the biggest songs that would bring tears to everybody's eyes was John Denver, Country Roads Take Me Home.
Okay.
And you'd have 65 guys sitting in the barracks with a tear in their eye wanting to go home, singing to John Denver.
I'm going to have to listen to that song.
Yeah. Country Roads Take Me Home. Or one of the bigger bands of that era would have been CCR, Creedence Clearwater Revival. Mm-hmm. And that they told a lot of stories, and a lot of guys like CCR.
And do you remember, like, the day your service ended, and how did you feel during that time?
I was happy.
Relieved?
Yeah, it was October 14th of 1975. I left Ellsworth Air Force Base, and my wife had already came home. She was home like 2 months before that already. Mm-hmm. So I was excited to drive home. It was 1,000 miles from Ellsworth Air Force Base to Cudahy. And I drove home, and it took me 17 hours, but I never stopped. I was excited to come home, and get out. And it's actually kind of a funny feeling to be out because you're so regimented in the military for those 4 years that it's hard to get used to civilian life, basically.
Oh, so like during those times, I bet you liked the food when you came back.
Oh yeah, the food was a lot better. Yeah.
And so what did you do in like those days and weeks afterwards when you came home? Did you just relax? Just take time enjoying, like not doing anything?
My wife and I, we rented a house on Birchwood Avenue, and I went back to my old job working for Pavlaki and Sons Sign Company, in which, being a veteran, they had to give me my old job back with the pay raises. but that wasn't what I was trained to do in the military or in the service. And I worked for them from October until I think somewhere until April or May. Then I went to work for CW Apparel Excavating Contractors, and I actually drove semi and operated heavy machinery up until 1990. And then in 90, I went to work for ABF Freight Systems, and I've retired now from Teamster 200 and draw a pension.
So you just worked a lot?
Yeah, I had a family to support, and that's all I did was work and support my family.
Was it hard to adjust between going straight from being in the military and all of that to just going back to civilian life? Like, was it hard for you?
I don't know if you want to say hard. It was different. It was a different way of life and that, but I did have friends that were in the military at the same time, even though they were in the Army. Like a good friend of mine, Rob Kaufman, he got out about a month after I did, and we did associate and affiliate together quite a bit, you know. But there was a lot of times of probably drinking, and, you know, and going out. That was one of our main things was, you know, let's go and down some beers and, you know, talk stupid, which we're good at.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, like, the close friendships you made in service, how many of them did you keep when you left?
For a couple of years, I kept friends with a guy by the name of Fred Weaver. He lived in Locusport, Indiana, and I haven't heard nothing from him in probably 30 years now. So, and basically, not much, really. It's like when everybody left, you just parted ways, and that was it. You know. So, I have a lot of veteran friends here in Cudahy that were all the same era. Doesn't look like me, does it?
No, I can still see the resemblance.
Yeah.
Did you ever join a veterans organization?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I belong to the VFW. I belong to, well, now the PLAV, Post 26 PLAV is gone. It's went defunct, so for Cudahy. And then I joined, I belong to AMVETS, American Veterans, and after a few years of belonging to them, I used to be part of the Honor Guard. In fact, you may have been here at the school where we put on the Veterans Day ceremonies with them. And then now Brad Smith, Cindy Smith's husband, he runs and controls the Honor Guard, but I was part of the Honor Guard for a number of years here. And it just gets to be too much. In fact, I just decided, and I talked it over with my wife Sal, and I decided to just run and operate the Cudahy War Memorial and keep that as a showpiece in Cudahy. And you know, it's more work than what a person thinks it is. You know.
It's nice to have that here, though, just to like remind everybody. And
Right. And I, like I said before, in my heart, I could not let that get run down, and you know, so not to honor those. You got to honor those guys that were killed on foreign soil. It's, you know, they're the ones that never had Christmas or Thanksgiving.
And you explained the different careers after the war, but did your like service inside the war, did it affect your life in any way?
It may have for a while. I've grown more mellow the older I've got. I'm 65 and I'm beat up. I can't do what I used to do anymore, you know. And there was periods of time where there was a lot of drinking and carousing and partying, and I imagine it was probably a form of PSTD to forget, you know. But I still have flashbacks and memories now, especially with the hurricanes and everything else, reminds me so much of June 9, 1972 of the Rapid City flood when, you know, it's hard. It's hard.
Yeah. Yeah, I can understand. Is there anything that you would want to like tell us that we haven't covered in the interview?
no, my whole family, we went to Cudahy. My older sister, Cher, she passed away 3 years ago of pneumococcal pneumonia. And my younger sister, February 1st, this February 1st will be 10 years, she was killed by a drunk driver. So I have no family left. My parents are gone, my sisters are gone. So live life, you know. Do what you got to do in your heart.
Is there any part of you that regrets joining the military? Like, out of all of the things you could do, is there a part of you that at all regrets being in the military?
No, I'm glad I did it. I've always said, when I come home, when I left to go into the service, I always thought my dad was the dumbest person in the world. 4 years later, boy, was he smart. You know, he was just trying to teach me to be a man. He was trying to teach me to grow up. But I thought he was crazy, you know. So, but yeah, I mean, 4 years later, there's so much that he was trying to teach me finally made sense in my head, you know.
Do you have any major life lessons that you learned from the military that you want to share with us? Is there anything that happened or anything that really like stuck with you through all these years?
Well, like I've mentioned, June 9, 1972, the flood. That was very hard. That was you know, when you're a young man and they give you a M16 and tell you, here, shoot people to kill, you know, it's like, wow. You know, nowadays they can't do that, you know. You know, the thing that comes back into my head all the time is Kent State. I don't imagine you've heard about Kent State when the students were rioting and the Army National Guard fired live rounds into the crowd and killed 4 students, you know. So things have changed dramatically over the years.
I can agree.
Yeah. And it's for the good. It's for the good, you know.
Well, did you have any more questions?
I don't think I did.
All right. Well, thank you for sharing your stories.
Okay. I'm glad that you're actually doing this. A few years ago, I would have probably never volunteered to do this. When I came home and got out of the military, one of the biggest things they told us to do was to take all your insignias off your uniforms, burn them, throw your uniforms away, and don't tell anybody that you're a Vietnam veteran.
Really?
Yeah. Because at that time, the Vietnam War was so opposed, you would be spit at, you were called baby killers, you weren't honored as defending your country. So for 20-some years, I never said a word. I never told anybody. I had taken all my insignias off my uniforms, and I gave my shirts and whatnot to my nephews to play with, and never told anybody. I would confide in my other military or in my other comrades, you know, that were fellow military brothers.
I'm glad that I was able to do this because I'm not very informed on our history,
Yeah.
and it's good. I feel like it's good for me. Well, I feel like I should learn more, and I feel like this is like a good step.
Yeah. If you want, you could probably. I don't Facebook. I don't computer. You know, I'm lucky I can cell phone. But you could go and Google or go on a lot of websites like the June 9, 1972 flood, the Rapid City flood. It'll tell you, and it shows pictures of us doing research and you know, rescuing people, and it's got all of the information. You know, a lot of people go, June 9, 1972. We didn't know there was a flood, you know.
Yeah, there's just a few members of my family too. Like I know my aunt, she served in the Navy, and my 2 cousins, they met in service.
Yeah.
And I haven't asked them about what they did, and I need to.
Yeah. Sometimes it's hard, but like I said, for 20-some years, I never said anything, never told anything, never talked about it. And it's only been in the last few years that I'm running the Cudahy War Memorial, and you can see the world is changing, and the public eye is changing. They're remembering and seeing the Vietnam veterans for what we were. More now. They're not only seeing Iraqi, Kuwait, but they're actually going far enough back to recognize the Vietnam veteran, which for years we were never recognized.
Well, thank you for sharing all your stories.
Thank you.
We really appreciated what you did.
Thank you.
No problem.
And then I got to take a couple shots of you just